So I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 4:02. First item of business is to review, everybody reviewed the minutes online. I know they were sent out. Is there any additions or subtractions?
To approve.
It's been motioned to approve the minutes and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Any new business? None?
I've got some data that I want to share with everyone for different salaries of government, private, other stuff. So I'll just go ahead and pass around what I have.
Boy, it is dead in here today.
Hello, starting late.
Oh, I thought you were reading
Isn't it nice?
that.
There was a 3 kind of thing, put up to 2, but it's still a little bit farther to back than what I always anticipate.
Put myself over there, there you go.
Actually, there's one is thick and there's
There's your truck.
All right.
Thank you.
Two of them?
I do.
This is the student copy and then.
It's just a bunch of garbage in the back. I figured I better, from the site information, I better have it all. And finally, one last.
You need a new stapler, Scott.
I was trying to avoid it. Okay, so let's start with the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, just a second,
Okay.
everything's still being handed out.
Okay.
You can have just 1 minute. Okay. Okay,
So this is the green folder. It's between the state of Iowa and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Council. So this was negotiated July 1st, in effect July 1st, 2019, in effect through the 20 year as well. So this was basically set a 2.1% increase for both years. And it's just a state of Iowa, public, negotiated. Thought it's a good reference point. In the back of this, it's just different pay grades for different salaries, or different pay grades for different job descriptions. So I didn't copy all that if anybody's
I
interested
was
in
gonna
looking at it.
say, mine isn't that thick.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. So secondly, I'd say let's direct our attention to the guy walking up the coins. So in the first statement, when it says $123,160 average total federal employee compensation, it's a little misleading because it shows that big salary. However, if you get into the meat, I think the more important figure here is the role of the total package, and that is government employee health benefits versus the private sector health benefits. And this is federal government, it isn't state government. But I thought, it's interesting and actually kind of relevant because we've talked about it in the past how the county employees and what their health package is and what's the value of that. Is it worth including the total package or not?
does it also include pension?
Yeah, it says it down here,
Okay,
includes
'cause you
healthcare and
just kept saying
pensions.
health, so you're
It says
saying
and
healthcare and
pensions, yeah.
pensions. Just wanted to clarify that.
So that is basically the reason for handing this out is just to show that there is value in the total package. I made a statement at the last meeting saying I really felt like at these salary levels, if you find managerial positions in a private sector, you're not going to probably hire anybody for those levels. Now, after reading some more of the total package things, maybe we're not that far off. See what you're looking
Yeah,
at.
I read on the, I went to the national website too, and they say wages are like 62% of the total compensation by the time all the benefits are
Right.
factored in. And that, so yeah, and I agree with.
So just-
So, yeah.
And then the next one, why government employees in Iowa are paid so much. This was an article I thought was interesting. It's from 2017, but it's talking about the state employees in Iowa and compared to the state employees or the private employees and how on the second page, stating a 4.3% increase in salary. I'm not sure which state employees that is. It doesn't really talk a whole lot about the specifics, but it's just one other comment I saw where state employees in Iowa, as far as this article, feels like they're paid more than private. Can't really disagree or agree to it, just another data point. And then as I walked in today, the final one is the 2020 salary budget. Frank actually handed me this one, that it's saying that for next year, a 3.2% increase. So, or projected 2020, 3.3% projected, so, or a mean 3.0%. So this isn't talking about government, it's just saying in general, employees, so.
And I think that depends on what you're in. Cause like the ag economy, no one's gonna get 3% raise this year at all.
And it just varies where you look, because I had seen a similar article that said 3.1%, versus 3 you're splitting hairs probably. But then I found it pretty interesting that the Social Security Administration's amount for this year is only 1.6, which I thought that was interesting. That's usually not such a big discrepancy between these other articles you see
Right.
for the private sector and then Social Security. They're usually pretty close to being in line, but they weren't this time around, so.
So, as far as material, that's what I have.
Yeah, I didn't make copies of mine, but my stuff is similar to that. I had let me see here. Wages for private industry, be about 3%, 3.1 for government,
Mm-hmm.
2.9 civilians, so it's all right in that range, and this comes right from the BLS.gov.
See, there was one I found that was 2.1%. So it's, what do you believe?
Yeah.
Well, 2.1 is what Aspen negotiated.
That's one, yeah, that you negotiated
That
that
was
one,
it.
but that was one that I found that somewhere too. I think it all depends on which sector you're in and what the job is, because there are places that are doing well.
There is a bargaining unit in Floyd County, correct?
Floyd County has bargaining unit for secondary roads.
Correct.
Wages are off the table, or wages are the only thing that's bargained now
Have
with
they,
the changes.
and I don't
And
recall
sheriff.
where they're at with their contract. Is it a
Their
two-year or
contract comes up July 1st. We just had pre-negotiation meetings and we had another commitment and sit down on that. Linda will know. I want to
I was
say
just
it
curious
was
if
2
that had any
point,
bearing here.
I
Okay.
think it was 2.5 for 2 years,
Okay.
but I'm not sure.
Okay, that's good to know.
But that'd be a July 1 date.
Okay.
I did also go to the area development website and kind of look through some of this housing survey. I don't know if any of you have also looked at it, but just trying to find a median wage for Floyd County, because I always take a look at cost of living. It could be above 2 as it is, but it was 1.8 what I found this year. But the median income has gone up in Floyd County to 50,314 is what I found in there. And they are expecting that to go up to 52 in the next couple of years too, so that's just for information I found on the survey, which, kind of, what are the taxpayers' situations like in this county too?
Right.
Something to consider.
What was the year for that median income? Did it have a reference point for that?
This year,
It was so you're current for
so
2018.
2018,
2018,
yep, and then by 23 it's supposed to be
52.
52.
Okay.
I can pass this around, this comes out of that survey.
So about 0.5% a year increase.
Steady growth anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Has anything changed in the last year, Gloria, as far as the health benefits or anything like that for the employees?
We had an increase to employees on a family plan, because single plans paid at 100%. But we had an increase the last 2 years in health insurance plans, starting July 1 for employees. And I do serve on the county joined a pool, IGHCP, and I'm the county's rep on that pool. And we've been having meetings with that board on where we think things are going to go, and I've had conversations, and it looks like that could have an increase. The well mark is going to be going up. I think she said something like 3 to 4%, but then we do a partial self-funding component that brings it down, and she said it would probably bring it down to 1.2%. But we are talking about doing some other things, like where we have a $500 deductible. That's a pretty low deductible for single and $1,000 for family. And so we're, instead of having to have an increase, we're going to end up proposing to the board that maybe we start raising these deductibles, raising out-of-pockets, and raising our deductible and out-of-pocket for the high deductible, high out-of-pocket plan that we buy from Wellmark. So right now that's, I think, $63,000 or $6,300, $6,380 or something like that, and then twice that for the family for deductibles. And we're looking at potentially raising that up, so we that's going to reduce our cost with the Wellmark plan, but it'll increase our cost on the partial self-funding part component. But typically that partial self-funding is a good way to wash that, bring that net cost down. So with those three things, where I just visited with board yesterday, or Monday's department head meeting, and we're looking at, we don't think we'll have to have an increase in the plan. So that will fall back on all of the employees if there are higher deductibles, higher out-of-pockets.
Right.
In the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, is it an 80/20, and it covers vision, dental, drug?
We have a Blue Cross plan that covers the health side.
Okay.
We have Delta Dental
Okay.
on the dental side.
No
And
vision?
No vision.
We
And no
self-fund a wellness component at $150 reimbursement. So we self-fund that for up to $150, whether it be vision or wellness type things. And we have probably, Tracy, what would you say, 20% of the employees that participate in that reimbursement program, 25% maybe, out of 100 and some. Yeah, maybe 30% maybe, out of 125 employees, we probably have maybe 30 around there that participate in that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody got anything else they'd like to share for new business? Everybody get to see the sheets handed around? Okay. Review and discuss material presented from the elected officials. I think did you get a chance to review? Did you see what they handed out last time at all? or-
Yes,
Okay, so you
Tracy
did.
did send those attachments. Thank you, it was very good. Good reports.
Any questions on any of those, or? Okay.
I guess, what was your discussion when they were here and they were presenting? What kind of stood out to everyone who sits around the table? Was there anything that was new to you?
No.
Pardon?
I mean, they always have good information. It's so, everybody does a nice job of compiling overview of what they do and how their office works, so.
Okay, so nothing really, okay, that's.
Nothing earth shattering, I guess, came out of it to me, but.
Okay. So next, we're gonna move on to the action of salaries of elected officials. Who wants to present theirs first? I will, I don't care.
Yeah, well,
So what I did was I put in current salary and the target 25th rank. And what percent proposing for the year, and then how many dollars that increases each wage. And then I went through and I put everything in there to show also what percents we've done since 2013. So we've been anywhere from 480 in 13 to 3.08. But if you take 13 out, the lowest that it's been is 2.27 minus the supervisors. But for everybody else, it's been 2.27. So what I did was I broke all that down and then put how much it is a year for dollars versus us talking about percentages, because it's easy to talk about percentages. And when you start looking at, okay, a 1.6, which would be the Social Security, would be on average, depending on the salary, $1,070. So just looking at it that way instead of, because it's easy to say percentages sound low, but then when you start looking at actual numbers, it's a little bit more than what you think it is when you start breaking stuff down. So, and I just went from 1% all the way up to 3.5% on all those, so. But what I did was, I put everybody at 2% and then put the supervisors at 1%. Since our target is 25, I don't know if we wanna change it. If our population starts slipping, maybe it's something we need to look at changing, because we're, no longer gonna maybe be in the top half like we are now, so should we be as far as we are? So with the supervisors at 17, I put them at 1% and everybody else at 2%. Any questions?
Do you have another copy?
One thing I wish I would have looked up, maybe somebody knows offhand, how our average, we were talking about the household income ranks within the other 99 counties. Is there a place to look that up? Anybody know?
I'm sure there
There's
is.
gotta be.
Wherever you found the median household income.
I don't remember if that was in that survey.
Because I'd be curious to compare where we rank, not so much just by population in our county, we know that, but where we rank as a state for wages in our county. That may be a good tool of measure for these types of positions too. If generally our county pays on the higher end of things, yes, we may be very justified in trying to stay towards the top, quarter or instead of the top third, but if we on a overall statement tend to be more towards the middle, or you would hope towards the middle, maybe we need to look at that kind of thing.
I keep thinking of Diane Potts over in Hancock County saying Winnebago's actually located in Hancock County,
Right.
but the people don't live there.
Right,
So.
and that's always what's tricky, because you
And
look
our
at your.
labor shed is huge. and
Right.
It encompasses such a large area.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
but I hear what you're saying, and I agree, but I don't know how you can compare, apples to apples.
Yeah,
So-
there isn't a way regardless.
So like Saragordo versus Floyd, Saragordo's 47.9. We're 47,994. This was
Yeah, these
17.
contiguous counties are all going to be, I'm guessing, pretty similar until you start getting into some of the bigger communities where you tend to have some higher.
I mean, Mitchell County is 72. So it all depends on what you have for industry in that.
Right, and
county.
that's just it, because when you start to look to it, a bigger, more populated area, you're gonna have a higher number of jobs to spread those numbers over on your average as well. So,
This is a good start.
But like Polk County is only 64.
yeah.
So, any more discussion on Troy?
No, and I'll just say, I agree with Troy. Sometimes it makes more sense to look at a dollar amount increase rather than getting so hung up if it's a 1.6 or a 2% raise. The percentages feel pretty obtuse when we all talk about real money in a real budget for people's livelihoods and the county, so.
Next.
So, I used the same format as Troy, omitted just a couple percentages. So we've talked about in the past, different positions, and I did put auditor at 2.5, treasurer at 2.3, otherwise really basically the same as Troy.
Run that by me, like, just a second, once I have this to look at, run that by me one more time.
So
That you did.
I did the auditor, instead of 2%, did 2.5%,
Okay.
and the treasurer at 2.3%, and left everything else the same as Troy's.
So why did you do 2.3 when that puts us over the target?
So if, if we're still looking at the rank, you have, that gets back up. What I think would be fair is to give everybody all the same increase every year. But start from ground zero and look at the job and start with starting salary. So I would give everybody the same raise every year, but let's go backwards and say, okay, this salary, this job is the salary, this job is the salary, this
Right.
job is the salary. So trying to satisfy, if this is a merit increase, then merit increase should be based on, okay, we're doing a good job, everything is fine. People are satisfied, people are happy and making whatever. That's where merit increase comes from. What I'm actually trying to do with this program is trying to get differentiated in job responsibility. Probably the fair way to do it is, do give everybody the same raise, but then reevaluate where the salaries are. And maybe that's a whole different discussion.
I think we run the risk of stepping over our objective. We tend to turn into administration when we're deeming this position and deserves this and this and that. I guess I've always looked at it as we work for the Floyd County taxpayers, and we've been asked to serve on this board to do homework, what compensation is, a certain percentage raise to give a recommendation to the board on. I think more of the administration needs to come on that end than the scope of this committee, myself. I really like across the board, same increase for everybody. There better be, something more along the lines of, we can't attract any attorneys or we can't attract anybody to run for election at that pay scale to do anything different than that.
Right.
Is my personal opinion. And I know we've had these discussions in the past too. I like both of these setups here, but I really think that all the percentages should be the same and let the supervisors deem it different when they get it handed to them and say, they can reduce what we say. That's just my opinion on it.
So what I heard you say was you wanted it to be the same percentage, which I would agree with. If you're gonna do it by a percentage, that seems to be more equitable. Because all the other information that you had found for you, it was all based on percentage. They weren't saying this is a flat dollar amount, it's based on that percentage, which that then carries through for everything else, but I tend to agree with that.
Which is fine, but if we do it that way, the 25th rank means absolutely nothing also, right?
No, it's been used as a tool.
I mean, because otherwise, you
Used
will
as a
have
tool.
different percentages,
Correct. We are looking at the peers and where we sit.
Right.
Where we rank population-wise, and yeah, they're ranked 34th or 24th or whatever. You're shooting at a moving target.
Exactly, no matter what you do.
It's used as a
Yeah.
tool to come up with an amount. Yeah, we can look at this and read the data, but, what are we gonna shoot for? 2, 3, 4?
Right.
That's the way I've looked at it. You can use that 25th as a target. You can use it as, it's not a perfect thing. It's just a system that's been used, so.
Did you have anything to add, Lisa?
Just taking it all in.
Okay. Okay.
Who wants to go next?
I have one. It's a little bit higher, and I did kind of shoot for that 3 3.1 that I come up with from the state. And that was my target, and then it happened to fall into, I come up with 3.234, and I did use the 25th target as a tool. So, in this one, and everybody's across the board, same increase. The right two columns would be the increase. I've had this formula for quite a while, and I did plug in the cost of living. And then it blends together and all comes out in the on the very right-hand column.
The only thing I gotta say was when we go off, what they're doing for their, when I went back and looked, what we ended up doing the last 2-3 years was actually above what those numbers ended up being. By 0.5 to 3/4% on the stuff I was seeing. So, above what the predictions were.
Oh, okay.
We ended up being more above than what the average raise was.
Oh, okay.
So if we give the same percentage all across the board, somebody that's already at a higher base salary is in nature gonna get a higher raise. So is that fair? The percentage is fair.
I think it
But
is
it's-
fair.
I don't know. It's how
But we
you-
don't, at our, I don't want to say it because it's involving our personal business, and I don't want that on, you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
But why is it fair to give a 5% increase to our foreman and a 5% increase to our least amount paid person? That other person's gonna get more of a wage if they don't deserve one.
Should we be talking dollars instead of percentages?
We've never done a percentage raise, we've always done increase by a certain dollar amount.
So in fiscal 13, I think that's before my time, what instigated $480, do you recall?
I think it was what we figured up the cost of living was. We went dollar-wise all
Okay.
across the board.
And there was something.
Because that
there
time
was
and last year
something
were the
with-
only times.
I
we
have
did.
done that our
Yeah.
company has done that too. It matter the
There was
least.
something with
bottom to top was
2013 though,
dollar.
that, why we didn't do that. I can't remember what that is, or
And
why
that's,
we did that.
I can interject a little bit if you want
Go
to.
ahead.
It had to do with the cap on social security and what the social security increase was. Because social security is based on a cap amount, and the 480 was what the increase was based on 25,000 or whatever the cap was for social security. So that was the base that everybody got at that time.
It's a good discussion of what is the right way. I know that cost of living is usually in a percentage.
It's the only way to calculate it across numerous fields, is to look at it from a percentage base, because, you're talking about a national statistic there, from state to state and many different backgrounds and fields. It is hard to compare, saying, in Iowa, minimum wage versus another state, it's just a way to boil it down.
But we don't
to
give a cost of living wage. It's either you work and you do your job or you don't. Just because the cost of living goes up doesn't mean that you automatically get 1.5%. We're not gonna pay that, we're gonna pay you on what you do, not cost of living.
Basically a merit increase.
Yeah,
Merit increase or not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's such a much harder scenario though for us, because like Kaylin was pointing out before, we're not in the office, we don't have that role of giving managerial oversight or, assessment to how people are performing in their job. We're solely looking at the management of funds.
But I think we're also, I don't know, I have are we representing taxpayers or representing our elected officials? So if we're representing our elected officials, we're listening to them and saying, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what
Right.
this is the effort I'm putting into it. And we should be making a campaign based on what their demands are,
What they
their
want.
wishes are. And that's probably how I've treated it from day one. It's like, yeah, I want to keep that in the back of my mind as the taxpayer and the county that we're in, and what's fair, but also I want to hear what they're saying, because my job was chosen because of their confidence in me trying to get their agenda. So, but on
And
the other hand, I'm a
ultimately, it's the
taxpayer too.
supervisor's job to approve or disapprove or adjust what we do based on their overall county's
Right.
budget, so.
If I may say, remind you though that the supervisors have to adjust equal percentage. So we can give 100% of what you say, we can give 50%, or we can give 0, or anything in between. But we have to do the same to everyone. So if we say 50%, we use 50% for everyone.
Everybody.
Except the supervisors, which is separate. Okay?
And can I say something too? I just want to say too that it's not that you are here to do what we ask you to do, what we want you to do. Chapter 331, I gave you the code sections at the last meeting, the duties are to compare like positions in the private sector, the public sector, in the state of Iowa, outside of the state of Iowa, and determine what is a fair wage based on that. So you've gathered great information on what's happening across the state of Iowa, what's happening for median wages in Iowa, but I think what you're still lacking there is what's a comparable position. Like for instance, I provided you with what city officials are paid. That's a like position. So a medium would be everyone from a top executive person, say at Pfizer or somewhere, versus someone working, say, at McDonald's or something. And so you're taking all these ranges of positions and coming up with a median, but that's not what a position is for an auditor, a treasurer, a recorder, or a sheriff, or an attorney.
I agree, and yet I guess the only change I would make to that is this is compensation, is what my understanding is. So it's more than just a wage. I mean, that also includes your IFRS contribution of almost 10%, 9.64, I believe. It also includes your health insurance. It's 9.44% for regular, the sheriff is 9.51, and jail is 9.91% for IFRS. That's huge.
Yes.
And that's a guaranteed benefit. It's not a rotating thing, it's guaranteed. To where when they're done, I mean, I don't know too many other positions that give you a guaranteed retirement benefit at a 10%. That's the employer's match. Then you have the health insurance, that is huge. That's huge. Just to even say you have that coverage and a $500 deductible, holy camolie. I mean, you start talking to other employers, can you offer that for a health insurance benefit?
Not
At
even
what
close.
cost? And to say you're gonna pay the whole single part? So to me, I'm not arguing, I think it's needed, and we're lucky and fortunate we're able to do it. All I'm trying to say is that I think should be part of that package.
I agree.
When we look at that compensation, because again, to percentages or dollar amounts, that ratchets up how much more goes into IFRS, and that's all.
And I think Scott's
That's
sheet
it.
brought that out very well when it was
Yes.
showing the differences between the public sector and the government
So,
sector.
and my question
I mean,
is that a full compensation or is that just straight wages? Because those, it changes the whole dynamic when you add in the other part of that compensation.
Full compensation.
That total package of what it costs for that employee.
Well, I think it's gotta be the total package. You can't compare it any other way
I don't
because
know.
But so I get from my employer every year. Your salary is one thing. This is what we pay out of pocket to have you as part of our organization.
Right.
And you see the total dollar amount they're investing in you.
Yeah, because they're showing you everything they're giving you,
The
not just,
employer does.
not just your
But
salary.
I'm
Right.
not so sure that that's all translated into it when they start talking wages and COLA, cost of living. I don't think that that's all takes that in because they're so all over the map as to what that other compensation is.
Well, and that's the point that Gloria was making. They're lumping in the, fast food restaurant worker with the CEO in those comparables. And so when you're coming up with just an average amount.
Just a median wage in the
Yes,
county.
right,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
And I don't disagree that that those benefits are a factor as well. But again, it's the comparison of the like positions.
Correct. So
Is that
that's
a
where,
trigger?
you know, a good one is you compare the city, because they fall under the same rules drivers. I believe their health insurance is probably a similar package. I don't think they're in the same pool that you are. So their rates, I believe, go up a little higher, but they still offer, I believe, a Blue Cross Blue Shield product that has similar coverage, and I believe their deductible, they probably buy it down for the employees, but leave that out there, but that would be comparable, mainly because of the IPERS. That's huge. Anyway, that's
discussion.
where I'm at.
Yeah, good input.
I think we need to look at the full thing and then come up with a percentage. I guess what I'd also like to say is they all just different rates, because everyone is stepping up, and I'll tell you what, it's like there's more and more demands all around.
There's no, in the last meeting, the presentations they gave, there's no doubt that
Yes.
everybody's doing their job and excelling at what they're doing. There's no question about that whatsoever.
And we did talk about last time how fortunate we are that we have long-serving people in our county that are well-respected within their various organizations for their like positions. And these, you know, folks are taking leadership roles within their state organizations and things. That's, you know, a big
So-
benefit.
So then what happens when someone new comes in?
But they start at the same thing.
So, and that's where it's not reset, where in any other job you're starting,
I know.
that's,
So, and that's
that's
something
something to
to
think
in the back of your
about
mind as
too.
well, yes.
Was it written in code that it has to be the same pay, or could you reset it to a starting wage again?
Well, usually they start January 1, so that's the
They
middle of the
reset it.
fiscal year, so they're gonna start right at that wage. I don't think I've ever heard of a time where they cut a wage.
The only thing I can think is that there have been situations where I think Winnebago County, or when the Winnebago County auditor started, they started him at a lesser amount than the others because he wasn't experienced, but, and I think he might still be just a little bit lower, but the intent was to bring him up to that at a later point.
So
I didn't know that that was allowed in code.
our attorneys,
I think for that half a year, if he started in January, and I don't remember if he was a midterm or not, but if he started in January, he would have been, and he would have had a cut, if that were the case. However, they got him down, but he was lower than
Than
the
the
others.
original,
Yeah.
the one predecessor of that.
Yes.
so when the attorney started recently, within the last 3 or 4 years probably, was that
16,
the outgoing wage?
Was it 16?
there was less of an increase given that year, I believe, because
I
of
think it
that.
froze. I think it
Yeah,
froze.
you did, when you had a new attorney come in, you did,
I
you
think it
lowered
was-
the increase, and then I think you caught it up.
Last
And
last
years
year,
after.
a couple
Yeah.
years.
Mhm.
Yes.
16, I think, was
But
at
that was,
1.7.
Yeah.
I believe that was the year.
but she also then got she started in November because we had a vacancy in the office.
Right.
And so from November to January, or till
July.
through June, she got the previous person, but then they froze it that year.
Right.
So like this time, right after the election, you knew what was happening, so you just froze it. It wasn't reduced, but it was frozen.
The basic principle is that a newly elected official will get the salary of the position they're replacing. That is the basic principle.
And there's arguments both ways as well, that the duties didn't change, so,
But the experience.
But you're paying for experience when you do some of this stuff.
Yeah,
That's,
nobody has
Well,
the same
that's right.
experience.
No.
coming into
That's
this
right.
position.
Even if you were in another county, it would be a learning curve.
That's why it's difficult for you to do that job of comparing like positions, because they aren't really anything quite like the positions.
Yeah, even
Other
even
than
from
in-
county to county, they're not the
Exactly,
same. So when you say
exactly.
compare like, well, the role from one county to another may or may not even be the
Exactly.
same, so.
Yeah.
And Cheryl, last time, the other comment I had made was thinking, you know, along these lines of, at some point, these lovely folks are going to want to retire. that, you know, somebody will need to run for those spots again, and looking at that total package, like you were talking of the benefits and compensation, we need to make sure we are in line enough that these positions are motivating for people to be willing to leave some other position, because in all likelihood, that's what happens. They leave another place of employment to run for the office and take on this role, and so we need to have adequate package that people are willing to do that. And, you know, service to your county is one thing, but livelihood comes into play to that as well.
Anything else? Any other proposals?
It sounds as though one of the two different ways before we really start going might be, are we gonna look at percentage, or are we gonna look at a dollar amount? Okay, and here's my humble opinion. We can say dollar amount, and they will convert it to percentage for us.
Yeah, they like last year.
Okay.
Which is fine, it all breaks out anyway.
That's how you need to do, because COLA and everyone else puts it down to a percentage, so I guess keeping that in mind.
But sometimes the percentages and the change in the actual dollars is so negligible. Is it really a big deal to be $74 different than before? You know, is that really worthwhile to have great debate over?
Okay, so there are three different proposals out here. Does anyone feel stronger about theirs than the other?
I just think that 2% is a little bit low with some of the other data. And that's why I was shooting for around 3. I like that, except for I think that 2 is a little.
Would you split it?
Cost of living 1.8, I mean, so it's just barely above that. I wouldn't have a problem splitting it in, halfway in between.
So there's option one.
Do a 3% for everybody, and then the supervisors a 1.5%, since that's a little bit like the other, following the other two, and since they're ranked 17, rather than down in the 34s and 20s, or upper 20s.
I would be fine with that too, but I think they should be at least cost of living 2% or 1.8 was a. And like they
Yeah,
said,
and that's fine.
Like they said last week, they are involved in a lot more things than people realize. All the chambers, the county boards, they're deserving of the least cost of living, I think, so.
Or how about a $2,000 increase for everyone except for the supervisors, and give them a $1,000 increase?
That's kind of along the lines of what we did last time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was averaging too, and it,
Which that's
Yeah, close
3%.
to 3.
That is 3.
Yeah, it's spread out.
Gonna be shorter
But-
on the attorney.
But I would propose we meet in the middle, go between 2 and 3, and go 2.5%, which would roughly be 1,700. Depending on what your salary, yeah.
So were you saying everyone
'Cause-
2.5, or just the supervisors a little bit lower?
The supervisor's a little bit lower and everybody else 2.5, because, and I should have printed it, I did read like the federal government, they were 2.5, they were, Trump signed it in. I don't remember when it was, but I think it was either 2.5 or 2.4. It's right around that 2.5% for their federal wage increase this last year, the last year and this next year.
Also knowing that the supervisors have the option,
To
they
raise
can
or lower it.
But also.
Oh, not raise it, just lower it?
No, just
Yeah,
all they
they
can
can
do is
lower.
lower the
They can
same
lower.
percentage.
Except
Equal
for when it
percentage.
comes to the supervisors ones, they can make that a deeper
Right,
cut if they
right,
so choose.
right.
So they have that full purview and look at the full picture, whereas we're just looking at a
Right.
recommendation. So here's my other one, that perception is reality.
So that perception out there, if we change that difference for the supervisors, it's almost sounding like, well, you know what, they're really not doing a good job. When I think they are. But I
agree.
think they all do, but I also respect and say, you know, maybe not so much because of that percentage ranking where they're at.
Right.
So if you lower theirs a little bit to start out, but then for the rest to recognize what they've done and where they're at,
Maybe go 2.5 on everybody and 2% on the supervisors.
I could go with that. I don't know. Is that oh wait, your
They
chair.
probably-
I can't make a motion.
I can make that motion, and it can die for lack of a second. I'm okay with that. I'm a big girl's
Then
fan.
you go in percent instead of dollar.
Correct.
Okay, I agree with that. The reason, or part of it is that county attorney is a little low, you know, I mean, in the 30s, and that's an important one for us to be able to attract.
Viet Gloria is
future, yeah.
31 in the 30s too, so.
Uh-huh.
How do
That
you-
one, it really stands out pretty
Mhm.
obvious. She's low.
So,
So then it's back to,
2.5%.
2.5.
You want to make a motion formally or?
I can.
Oh, I thought,
can.
okay, I thought you were.
Yes, I thought I did. I thought I said I make that motion, and it may die for lack of a second. I make the motion 2.5% for county attorney, sheriff, treasurer, auditor, recorder, 2% for supervisor.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion to give a 2.5% increase to county attorney, sheriff, treasurer, auditor, and recorder, and a 2% to supervisor. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes.
You did.
I don't have to.
You have the right to vote on.
I have the right,
Yeah.
I can make a tie or break a tie.
Yeah. But you have, because you are a representative, you do have.
Okay,
You
so
are
it isn't like
representing-
the other, like regular Parley Pro
No,
then?
You are
I vote aye.
representing a person, so.
I vote aye.
To approve.
Approve.
done.
Done?
That was easy. Not. I tell you, I appreciate those who bring the spreadsheet. I just did a lot of reading and looking past history. To me, you need to know where you've been to know where you're going.
I like
Thank
this
you.
historical data on that.
It's interesting, ain't it?
Mhm.
So every year, just kind of keep
We're fairly consistent, really.
adding to it, and then you,
Mhm.
but referring back to it's good.
It is. And that's the hard part is, because next year's an election year, and these wages won't take effect until July 1 of 2020, which begins that next fiscal year. So then whoever is going out and campaigning, they know what they're gonna get, starting that January 1.
When is everybody's term up for reelection?
Mine is next year.
Mine is
And the
next
county-
year,
And the county attorney is next year.
and the county attorney.
And so is sheriff.
To 2020?
And the sheriff, yes,
2020.
yeah.
Is it one or two supervisors up next year?
One,
Just
me.
one. Doug, you were just up.
And Doug and I just got seated.
And Frank.
Doug got reseated
And
and I
Frank.
just got seated, yeah, a year ago.
Let's split them out. Okay.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 4:50.